place at nearly 30%. Joining us now is retired Marine intelligence officer and host of the Strat podcast, Hal Kempfer. Hal, always great to see you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Kelly.
So off the top, let's start with those polls. You know, China perceived as our greatest threat, also Americans concerned about entering a major war within the next 5 years. What is your reaction to those numbers?
Well, I think it's a realistic view of Americans. You know, first off, there's a lot of assessments out there that China is going to do something by, say, by 2027. And so there is kind of this leaning forward. I think it's been so well disseminated that it's been kind of basically incorporated into the thinking that something's going to happen with China in the Far East, South China Sea, something with Taiwan. So I think that's a very realistic assessment. And the other thing is the world is growing less stable. You know, we saw what happened in the Middle East and what's happening in the Middle East, I should say. We've seen all the things, the posturing and everything else with Iran. And of course, everything that's ongoing in Ukraine. I think it's a very realistic assessment by the American people.
You know, turning now to the Russia-Ukraine war, that tariff package we outlined off the top, it could have crippling impacts to Russia's economy. What do you make of that strategy play by President Trump, and also how it plays alongside the U.S.-Ukraine minerals deal as well, Hal?
Well, that is basically, it's going to embargo anything that countries that import oil, uranium, other things from Russia with that package, if President Trump signs it. And frankly, what I'm hearing is that there may be enough votes in Congress, they may actually be able to override a potential veto. But it's not clear that President Trump would veto it. He's already talked about doing something like this. But what that does is it puts countries like India and China in a place where they simply can't keep taking all of that, what they call, basically dark oil, if you will. That oil is being sent on these very unseaworthy ships, being brought in there, sold at low prices. They're going to have to stop doing that. And what that does to Russia is it will stop that revenue stream that pays for the war. And it's going to force Putin to look at this thing and say, hey, look, I can't keep doing this over the long run. It's a very coercive, very direct move, but it also might be one of the few things that works on the economic side that would force Putin into peace negotiations or a ceasefire.
Yeah, you know, we have about a minute left, but I want to get this in as well. You know, White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, she told the New York Post this week that the president has devoted 100 days and his very top people to Russia and Ukraine. And if peace is not achieved, it will be because it can't be achieved. Now, this comes as the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has said the U.S. can't continue dedicating time and resources to this effort if nothing's going to come to fruition, essentially. What do you make of those statements, Sal? What they signal about the likely next steps here?
Well, I think the U.S. has done a lot of stuff. You know, we've had these meetings. You know, Steve Witkoff's been over there repeatedly trying to get this thing in place. Nothing seems to be budging, and I think it's taken a while. President Trump clearly is realizing the relationship he had in his first term with Putin is not the relationship or the real relationship he has now. And that's kind of being incorporated into this. He's realized he's going to have to do something much more direct to move the dial, certainly with Putin. And he seems to have a much better rapport with Zelensky, which I think has changed the whole relationship in terms of how this could come about. But I think we're going to step back, use those measures, and see if the two parties come together.
Yeah. All right. Well, stay tuned. Hal Kempfer, thank you as always.
All right. Thank you, Kelly.
Well, tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern, we hope you tune in for